The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung in the cold November air. But for me, that familiar aroma only intensified the knot in my stomach. I stood on the porch of the house where I grew up, in a small Midwest town, watching through the fogged window as the silhouettes of my family moved through the dining room. 3 years. 3 long years since I last stepped foot in this house. 3 years since I was led away in handcuffs while my own relatives looked at me with a mixture of shame and disgust. Today was Thanksgiving 2023, and I had been released just 2 weeks ago. My hand trembled as I touched the door handle. It wasn't from the biting autumn cold. It was from the certainty that on the other side, the same judgmental stares awaited me, the same venomous whispers, the same cruel jokes that had followed me throughout the entire trial. But I had a reason to be here, a reason they didn't know about yet. In the inner pocket of my worn coat, I felt the weight of a sealed envelope, an envelope that would change everything, an envelope that would turn their laughter into absolute silence. I took a deep breath, feeling the icy air burn my lungs, and finally turned the handle. It was time to face my family. It was time to discover who truly deserved my forgiveness. The warmth hit my face as I stepped inside, but the atmosphere was anything but welcoming. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks clinked against plates in the sudden silence. My cousin Sarah was the first to speak, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Well, well, look who decided to grace us with his presence. She took a sip of wine, her eyes never leaving mine. How was your vacation, Marcus? The table erupted in muffled laughter. My Uncle Robert, always the loudest voice in the room, couldn't contain himself. Vacation? That's what we're calling federal prison now? He slapped his knee, delighted with his own wit. I stood there, absorbing every snicker, every sideways glance. This was exactly what I had expected, what I had prepared for during those sleepless nights in my cell, staring at the concrete ceiling and planning this moment. My mother, sitting at the head of the table where my father used to sit before his death 5 years ago, looked up at me with tired eyes. Marcus, honey, please sit down. Let's just try to have a nice dinner. But my brother David wasn't done. Mom, are you serious? We're supposed to pretend everything's normal? That he didn't steal from his own family's business? That he didn't embarrass us in front of the entire town? The words hit like physical blows, but I remained standing. I had learned patience in prison. I had learned to wait for the right moment, and that moment was coming. You're right, David, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I did steal. I did embarrass this family, and I paid the price for it. I reached into my coat pocket, feeling the envelope's smooth surface. But before you continue celebrating my downfall, there's something you all need to hear. The room fell silent again, but this time it was different. There was something in my tone that made them pause, something that cut through their mockery like a blade through silk. I pulled out the envelope, its official letterhead visible even from across the room. This arrived at my apartment yesterday. It's from Henderson, Brooks & Associates, Dad's old law firm. My mother's face went pale. Marcus, what is that? It's a letter that should have been read 3 years ago, the day before my sentencing. I held it up, watching as recognition dawned on several faces around the table. Apparently, there was some confusion in the law firm's filing system after Mr. Henderson's retirement. Uncle Robert's laughter died in his throat. What kind of confusion? I smiled for the first time since entering the house, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. The kind that reveals the truth about who really stole from the family business. The silence was deafening now. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, the sound of my cousin's wine glass trembling against her teeth as she took another nervous sip. You see, I continued, walking slowly around the table, I always wondered how the prosecution knew exactly where to look for evidence, how they knew about the offshore accounts, how they had such detailed financial records that even I didn't know existed. David shifted in his chair. Marcus, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that someone in this room set me up. Someone who had access to the business files. Someone who knew Dad's banking passwords. Someone who needed a scapegoat when their own embezzlement was about to be discovered. The envelope crinkled in my hands as I gripped it tighter. And this letter contains a confession. A deathbed confession from someone who couldn't live with the guilt anymore. The weight of 3 years crashed down on me in that moment. 3 years of sleepless nights, of wondering if I was losing my mind, of questioning my own memories. 3 years of being treated like a pariah by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I looked around the table at these faces I had known my entire life. Faces that had been at my birthday parties, my graduation, my father's funeral. Faces that had turned away when I needed them most. "Do you know what it's like?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "To sit in a courtroom and watch your own family testify against you. To see the disappointment in your mother's eyes. To know that everyone you've ever loved believes you're capable of betraying them." My mother started to cry softly. "Marcus, please." "No, Mom. Let me finish." I felt the old anger rising, but also something else. Something that surprised me. Relief. I spent every day in prison asking myself the same question. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have missed the signs that someone was using our business as their personal piggy bank? I turned to face David directly. But the real question I should have been asking was, who had the most to gain from my downfall? David's face had gone ashen. "Marcus, you're scaring everyone. Just read the damn letter if you're going to read it." "Oh, I will. But first I want everyone here to understand something." I placed my hands on the back of an empty chair. Dad's chair. "I forgave you all a long time ago, even before I knew the truth. I forgave you for abandoning me, for believing the worst about me, for letting me rot in prison while you continued your comfortable lives." The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to protect the person who destroyed my life. I broke the seal on the envelope with deliberate slowness, savoring the way everyone leaned forward despite themselves. The paper inside was thick, official, bearing the letterhead of Henderson, Brooks and Associates, and dated just 4 days ago. "This letter," I said, unfolding it carefully, "is from Margaret Chen. You remember Margaret, don't you? Dad's longtime accountant, the one who had a stroke right before my trial and couldn't testify." Uncle Robert's fork clattered to his plate. "Margaret's been in a nursing home for years. She can barely remember her own name." Actually, Uncle Robert, Margaret's mind cleared up significantly in her final weeks. Funny how guilt can do that to a person. I smoothed the letter against the table. She dictated this to her daughter, who brought it to the law firm. Apparently, Margaret couldn't die with this secret. The tension in the room was suffocating. I could see sweat beading on David's forehead, despite the cool temperature. Sarah had stopped drinking her wine altogether, her knuckles white as she gripped the stem of her glass. "Should I read it aloud? Or would someone like to confess first?" I asked, my eyes scanning each face around the table. "It might be easier coming from you rather than from a dead woman's testimony." "Marcus, this is insane," David said, but his voice cracked. "You're talking about some conspiracy theory. You stole the money. You were caught. You went to prison. End of story." "Is it though?" I held up the letter. "Because according to Margaret, she was approached by someone in our family 6 months before the theft was discovered. Someone who asked her to create false documents. Someone who promised her a cut of the money if she helped frame me." My mother gasped. "That's impossible. Margaret loved this family. She did love this family, Mom. That's why she eventually refused to help. But by then, it was too late. The plan was already in motion." I looked directly at David. "The plan to make me the fall guy for someone else's crimes." The grandfather clock chimed 7 times, each note echoing through the silent room like a countdown to Judgment Day. "David Michael Harrison," I read from the letter, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "That's how the confession starts. Your full name, brother." David shot up from his chair so fast it toppled backward. "This is bullshit. You're making this up." "Sit down," I commanded, and something in my voice made him freeze. "Sit down and listen to what Margaret Chen had to say about you." With shaking hands, David righted his chair and sat back down. The entire table was transfixed, watching this scene unfold like a car accident they couldn't look away from. I continued reading. "David Harrison approached me in March 2020, 6 months before the investigation began. He told me he had been skimming money from the business accounts to pay gambling debts, and that Marcus was getting suspicious. He needed my help to redirect the blame." "No," my mother whispered. "No, this can't be true." "He showed me forged documents with Marcus's signature," I read on. "He had been practicing Marcus's handwriting for months. He asked me to backdate certain transactions and create false email trails that would implicate Marcus instead of him." David's face was now completely white. "She's lying. She was senile." "Was she lying when she described your gambling addiction, David? The one you hid from everyone? The $70,000 you owed to loan sharks?" I looked up from the letter. The same amount that was initially stolen from the business? Uncle Robert stared at David in horror. 70,000. David, is this true? David's voice broke. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. Time? I laughed bitterly. You had 3 years while I was in prison. Did you pay it back then? The silence was answer enough. I continued reading. David told me that if I didn't help him, he would lose everything. His house, his family, possibly his life. He said Marcus was strong enough to survive prison, but he wasn't strong enough to survive what would happen if he couldn't pay his debts. Sarah spoke for the first time in minutes, her voice barely audible. David, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't let Marcus go to prison for something you did. David's composure finally cracked completely. I never meant for it to go that far. I thought they would just investigate, maybe give him probation. I didn't know they would send him to federal prison. But you let them, I said quietly. You sat in that courtroom every day of my trial. You hugged Mom when the verdict was read. You helped pack up my apartment when I was sentenced, and you never said a word. I was scared, David screamed, tears streaming down his face. I was scared and stupid, and I thought maybe it was better this way. You were always Dad's favorite. You were always the strong one. I thought you could handle it better than I could. The room erupted in chaos. Mom was sobbing. Uncle Robert was shouting. Sarah was staring at David like she'd never seen him before. But I felt calm. Finally, after 3 years, I felt calm. The police arrived an hour later. I had called them myself while the family was still processing the truth. David didn't resist when they read him his rights. He looked almost relieved, like a man who had been holding his breath for 3 years and could finally exhale. As they led him away, he stopped and looked back at me. Marcus, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I nodded. I know you are, David, but sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of my life. The house emptied quickly after that. Uncle Robert left without a word. Sarah hugged me briefly, whispering apologies I wasn't ready to hear. Others mumbled excuses and fled into the cold November night. Only Mom and I remained sitting in the living room where we used to watch football on Thanksgiving when Dad was alive. I should have known, she said finally. I should have seen the signs. We all should have, I replied. But David was good at hiding things, he always was. She looked at me with eyes full of regret. Can you ever forgive me? For not believing in you? I thought about that question for a long time. Forgiveness wasn't something you could force or fake. It had to grow slowly, like a plant reaching toward sunlight. I'm working on it, Mom, I said honestly. But it's going to take time. She nodded, understanding. Will you stay? For the rest of the weekend. I looked around the room at the family photos that still included David, at the Thanksgiving table still set for a dinner that would never be finished. This house held so many memories, good and bad, true and false. Yeah, I said finally. I'll stay. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, covering the world in a blanket of white. A fresh start, a clean slate. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe again. If this story touched you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. There are stories that change how we see the world, and this is just one of them.